Välkomna till Wednesday Webinar och Wednesday Breakfast. Det är vårt hybridevent. Vi har ju långt innan pandemin kört hybridevent. Då var det ju flest människor på plats och några antal som var på distans. Nu är det precis tvärtom. Men väldigt trevligt att få köra lite event från scen igen. Under våren så gjorde vi många webinars och digitala aktiviteter. Men nu gör vi hybrid under hösten och ser hur det fungerar. Det ska bli jättekul. Vi har ju frukostseminariet som vi brukar börja våra konferensdagar med. Och sen så har vi hela konferensen, både online och en del i studion här på plats. Så att nu handlar det om cybersäkerhet och sociala medier. Och senast vi hade Wednesday Breakfast tillsammans med Infomedia och Zerofox som är våra partners här idag på frukosten, så kände jag att man fick väldigt mycket information. Det var väldigt nyttigt, men jag fick också att det var väldigt jobbigt. Just för att jag kände att jag vill bara gå hem och stänga av alla sociala konton, både företaget och privat, och bara glömma allting. För det finns så mycket hot där ute. Men det förstås, man ska inte bara säga att det är jobbigt, utan man ska börja agera på det här. Hur kan vi undvika alla hot och möjligheter och risker som finns? Och det är både Infomedia och Zerofox specialister på. Så jag tycker vi ska ge en stor applåd och välkomna Alexander Wallin från Infomedia på scen. Hej Alexander, väldigt trevligt att få träffa dig så här live. Vi har ju pratat om att vi skulle ha en AV tillsammans. Börjar vi med i mars, vi har fortfarande inte haft AV. Men den kommer.
Det kan komma i januari kanske.
Ja, så. Välkommen, scenen är din.
Ja, men tack så mycket. Jag ska stå här kanske. Om jag vore en auktoritär stat som såg allting i svartvitt och allting som en kamp mellan öst och väst, vad skulle jag göra då? Då skulle jag sätta upp tusentals konton och sen skulle jag försöka komma åt företagsledare, politiker, VIPs, PEPs, användare med adminrättigheter. Sen skulle jag skriva till dem och försöka få dem att ge upp små bitar information. Kanske ett lösenord, kanske en plan, kanske en strategi, kanske någon liten del av en pusselbit. Sen skulle jag lägga det här pusslet hemma och sen skulle jag använda den informationen för att motverka mina fiender och gynna mina egna intressen. Om jag var organiserad brottslighet så skulle jag inte göra lägenhetsinbrott. Jag skulle inte stjäla båtmotorer. Jag skulle inte ägna mig åt droghandel. Det är för farligt, det är för riskfyllt, man åker dit, det är långa straff. Det jag skulle göra är att jag skulle kontakta privatpersoner i stor skala och jag skulle förmå dem att uppge sina bank-ID:n eller andra betalmöjligheter som de har. För att de skulle tro på mig så skulle jag leta efter någonting som de tror på. Varumärken som banker, livsmedelskedjor, logistikföretag, sånt som de tror på och som de behöver. Så jag ska titta på deras Facebook-sida, titta vilka är som följer den här sidan. De är förmodligen med i deras kundklubb, de är förmodligen engagerade i det här företaget på något sätt, vill köpa av dem, vill interagera med dem. Sen ska jag sätta upp en egen fake-sida och sen ska jag skriva till dem på Messenger på Facebook. Och jag skulle få ungefär 1% hitrate på det. Om jag var en politisk aktivist så skulle inte jag sky några som helst medel för att få ut min propaganda. Och kunde jag identifiera ett konto med många följare eller en mailadress med många mottagare eller ett telefonnummer eller en hemsida med många besökare som jag kunde ta över för att sprida min propaganda, så skulle jag göra det. Men jag är ingen av de sakerna. Jag heter Alexander Wallin, jag är Head of Solutions på Infomedia. Det betyder att jag är ansvarig för att när någon har sålt någonting och vi har en kund på Infomedia så ansvarar jag för att det implementeras på rätt sätt, utbildas på rätt sätt, används på rätt sätt och att det värde som ska komma ut av den här programvaran faktiskt materialiserar sig. I det ingår att jobba med många partners. Några av våra partners här idag. Hootsuite ska ha ett evenemang. Talkwalker finns i appen. Man kan klicka på deras banner och prata med dem i ett Zoom-chattrum. Och idag så kommer jag också presentera Lisa Deegan från Zerofox. So please let me introduce my colleague, my friend and my partner, Lisa Deegan from Zerofox. You're on. Lisa, are you with us?
I sure am.
All right, you're on stage.
What was that?
You're on stage. It's all you.
I'm on stage. I missed your piece actually. So it's live from my side now, yeah?
Yep.
Super. Well, good morning, everybody. My name is Lisa Deegan. I am the Regional Director at Zerofox for the Nordic region, and delighted to have the opportunity to speak to you all today and give you a little bit of, I suppose, an educational piece on social media protection, digital risk, and the role of cybersecurity within social media as well. In fairness, what my background has mirrored the trajectory of online brand protection and cybersecurity. I've got about 20 years experience working with corporations around the world, helping them define strong intellectual property rights, strong online brand protection and protection strategies across their cybersecurity estate, across all sectors. And essentially, one of the things that I've noticed in the last, I would say, 10 years is the convergence of cybersecurity, online brand protection, social media protection, and the collaboration across multiple departments within an organization. And I suppose that's kind of one of the things that I want to talk to you today, mixed in with some of the areas that are of interest for you guys. Really little bit about who I work for, and this is one of the reasons why we kind of have such a great insight into this particular topic. I work for Zerofox. I've been there for just under 3 years now. My role within there is to work with companies to, again, define their online strategies and help them put some form of digital risk protection in there. The company itself has been around since 2013. We were born from social media protection because we're the first company to basically launch a service to protect from a cybersecurity point of view, having recognized the very viral nature of social media and the ability to deliver cybersecurity issues and attacks via that platform infrastructure. I'm based out of the London office. I'm currently in the wild Atlantic way though, so just kind of fending off the latest Atlantic storm, but I'm based in London. Our headquarters is in Baltimore in the US, but we've got offices all around the world, and we're working with just over 1,000 clients across 50 countries, helping them protect their online estate. So we've got quite the establishment there as well. And just kind of clicking onto the agenda. So these are more kind of, I suppose, topics that we're going to cover. I want to give you a sense of where we see the role of cybersecurity within social media. A lot of you would be part of the marketing teams, communications teams, PRs, all of those areas focused on social media, focused on bringing the brand out to the wider audience online. But maybe up until now, or maybe until recently, the role of protecting that estate from being attacked, from being taken over, has not maybe been within your remit or something that you've been focused in on. So I suppose we want to give you a sense of how you communicate safely within these environments, how you proactively work to protect digital risks happening to your people, your estate, your digital presence. And really, you know, is that something that you need to be more informative with your partners, with your clients? Is there something more strategic you can do to protect yourselves online? And then hopefully we'll have some time at the end. I'd love to take some questions from you, just to get a sense of, what's challenging for you out there. Where we can have a quite an interactive session if that's something that you'd like to pursue. Cool. Okay. So moving on to the role of cybersecurity within social media. So back in the day, it was a very simple and elegant landscape, if you like. This is what social media looked like back in the day of roughly 2011. It was a fledgling platform infrastructure. There was lots of new faces on the horizon. Twitter and Facebook were the primary ones, but other ones kind of evolved. And it was probably simple to try and decide what should I do, where should we be present, how are we present, and it was a very easy area to police. I started working with companies around this time, just making sure that they had presence rather than protecting the presence. But today, that social conversation has significantly evolved. It's kind of looking at a conversation for every single topic you can possibly imagine. And I think one of the things that's really important to understand with this is that with all of this technology, with all of this social interaction and the conversation having evolved, it's actually interesting that a CMO today probably has more budget to spend on technology than maybe a CIO because of the very nature of what you're doing, what you're delivering messages via. And in Sweden itself, the primary platform that's being used today is Facebook. That's coming in at about 82% market share across your particular organizational countries and what you're using today. So Facebook is the big one across your particular region. But if we kind of look at your digital ecosystem, and this is obviously, social media might be the kind of primary focus for you today, but actually the digital ecosystem has evolved dramatically over the last 10 years. Most people have domains and they have websites and they have websites. Oh, I got a bit of feedback there. So some companies might be very active using mobile apps depending on your market. You certainly might have a physical product that you want to launch on the various marketplaces. You might want to find out from a sentiment analysis point of view, what's going on with our brand? What do people think? And you have some form of analysis or presence on news blogs and forums and review sites. Equally, you might have various collaboration platforms that you use internally, code sharing sites where your coders and your e-commerce people kind of put code or get code. And equally, you might want to keep an eye on what's going on in the deep and dark. These are the kind of various areas that have evolved over time. And the beautiful thing about the internet, and the one thing that I've looked about it from the outset, is the opportunity, is using that platform to evolve your brand, reaching that global audience. But the reality is, with every fabulous invention, there will evolve a kind of dark side to that. And that dark side really can kind of show itself in any particular way. And without sounding like the doom and gloom, without sounding like something that you need to be afraid of, it's more being aware of. It's more being about understanding what the impact of some of these, I suppose, risks and impacts to your people and brand can bring to the table. And really and truly, it's evolved. It's something that's there, and I think we just need to be aware of it. And companies like Zerofox and the work that I've personally been doing with a lot of companies over the years has just brought insight and, I suppose, illumination into what could happen if things are gone unprotected. Now, I don't want this to be a scary slide, but there's a lot going on out there. And there's a lot going on specifically in Europe and specifically in Sweden. There's cyber attackers are like deploying, familiar new tactics to kind of attack digital presence. The primary thing that we would advise from the outset is to become a hard target. Most companies have a protection mechanism in place in some form or another that might sit in security, but are they getting that 360 view? Are they looking across that entire digital landscape to get a sense of where the holes are, where someone could exploit them. And I think really and truly, the news that comes to our table today, it's once you've been attacked, once you've been breached, once your social profiles have been taken over, the damage is already done, and it's making sure you're ahead of the curve so that you have protection mechanisms in place so the company or the people or the product that you put forward out there into the global marketplace is protected and becomes a hard target before your company becomes a headline. At this stage, I would like to just walk you through just a few of the typical digital risks that we have seen over the years. They evolve, it depends on your company, it depends on how you present yourself online. But I just want to give you a sense of where some of the challenges are coming for organizations around the world, across all sectors. Anybody that has a digital presence these days is exposed to the threats out there. So I'd like to just walk you through them now, give you a sense of some of the exposures that happen, and might spark some interest, might spark some questions. But here we go. So fraudulent accounts, and forgive me, I just took some random brand accounts out there, particularly in your regions, just to give you a sense of the exposure that's there from, I did this yesterday, just to make it fresh. Fraudulent accounts happen. It was probably one of the first areas of concern. It was much like when websites were launched and copycat websites started to happen back in the early 2000s. They're set up. The beauty for fraudsters for social media is that you can stand up a copycat site, a copycat account profile within minutes, using a company's intellectual property, making it look really sexy and real. And all you need to do is start gaining followers, or and just making that kind of profile look credible, and you're there. You have a presence that you can use to exploit the brand or any of the clients interested. Frequency is pretty high. The primary tactic there is depending on various types of social attacks. The impact is really based on what the motives are. Are they trying to hijack your followers to go to their profile? Are they trying to use it to maybe pretend to be a support team representing the organization? The kind of possibilities are endless with this particular model. But the solution is to constantly monitor for instances of fraudulent accounts, and that's an ongoing basis. The fraudulent account could be stood up within minutes, and then it could be completely stripped back again. So it's having the ability to monitor for these accounts is really, really important, and then having the mechanism in place to take action as well. Impersonation accounts, very similar to that too. The one thing we recommend from the outset, much like it would be back with websites and domains back in the day, make sure you have a presence on the various typical platforms, because if you don't, the fraudsters will set one up in your brand, for your product, and they will start using that because they'll spot the hole, and it's important to get there before they do. And this is not just about your brands or your organization. It also is your people too. For this particular Swedish politician, we found thousands of profiles that were just set up for obviously nefarious reasons. But it's important to make sure that maybe your executives, your journalists, if you're a media organization, or anybody that's a front and center face of your organization is protected, and make sure that they have some form of defensive registration. And then continuously monitoring again for instances of copycats, of impersonation. Really, really important. Now this is the very interesting one, because no doubt most of you have presence somewhere on the social infrastructure, on the social ecosystem. The frequency of this particular type of risk is huge. Apparently, the New York Post did a survey that they worked with Facebook, and it looks like that approximately 8 million Facebook accounts are hacked every second. Now, that's obviously globally, but it's a big thing. And the opportunity, again, is huge for the fraudster. The loss of trust that occurs for particularly this scenario is huge. We have worked with a rather large Swedish organization who had their primary Instagram profile taken over. They lost all their followers. They had to start all over again. If they'd had a mechanism in place to protect that profile from being hacked and taken over, they wouldn't have lost their follower communities, and it would have been a big cost savings to the organization. Again, continuously monitoring for suspicious changes to the accounts, for malicious posts, for ransomware links being posted on your legitimate profiles. All of this is really important to look out for. And again, Sweden is not exempt to any of these account hacking techniques. And particularly if you've got quite a big band of followers, you'll be a massive target for these fraudsters as well. Fake websites, slightly off-piste when we think about social media protection, but equally as pertinent, because one of the things that occurs today is blended attacks or blended targets. So often a Facebook profile will have your link to your website, link to your mobile app, link to a WhatsApp account, whatever the case may be. And equally, when social media profiles are stood up, they are given various pieces of information, and fake websites is often one of the ones that happens in impersonation. Equally, there's often financial scams associated with these fake websites. So a particular high-profile individual, high-net-worth individual might be a target for Bitcoin scams, and there might be a social profile set up to get that reach, and then equally a website where you can click through and apply to participate in this Bitcoin venture, which is actually a scam. And obviously one of those situations has happened across most of the Nordics at this stage. We've worked with quite the number of CEOs and chairmen who have been targets for this kind of scam. Again, loss of trust is out there, kind of loss of reputation, PR crisis in some cases. Often it might even impact the share price if it's your chairman or your CEO by just proxy of what's occurred out there. Again, monitoring for brand-related posts on accounts, monitoring for suspicious-looking domains. All of this is really important, and then having an enforcement process to take them down with an organization that can do that speedily is really important. Now, this is probably the one that's most ubiquitous. Phishing scams and malware attacks. These guys have been out there since, I would say, back in 2005, 2006. Very focused on domains. They were domain-based phishing. Today, they have evolved into social phishing. And social phishing can be anything from someone trying to garner people to their website to sell a product that's actually counterfeit or grey market, or it could be a social phishing to socially engineer data from people within an organization, someone setting up a CEO or a CFO profile on LinkedIn, for example, engaging with some of the organization's legitimate employees to make their profile look legitimate, and then using that status, that credible looking profile to engage with partners or other CEOs or whatever their modus operandi is. Equally, it could be used to send private messages with links which contain malware or ransomware, or indeed it just could be your typical financial services based phish. There is no ends to what could occur here. Again, it's looking at phishing. The frequency is approximately, we have over 7 million people being exposed to phishing issues annually. The impact is an average of 3.7 million remediation costs for phishing takedowns. And really the solution is to monitor for phishing attacks, making sure you have swift alerts, On the malware side, again, they tend to be blended. So it's monitoring both hand in hand, gives you the advantage over of what's occurring out there and making sure you can take action immediately, because these things happen. They have a 5-day window and then they tend to disappear. Brand and fraud scams, again, been around since the beginning of the internet, when it started to be used as a business medium. Regular occurrences happen. It really doesn't discriminate. If you've got a popular brand, it doesn't matter if you're a small family-run organization or you're a massive global conglomerate, you are a target if you don't have the right mechanisms in place. Police have obviously come in and they give advisories on a lot of the brand fraud and the scams out there. But the lucrative nature of these scams mean they won't go away. They're kind of there for the foreseeable. It's just making sure you take a hand against them and become a hard target. Again, looking for impersonations. A lot of these are linked. You will find a brand with issues across multiple areas. So they'll have a website, they'll have a selection of social profiles, they'll probably have a WhatsApp group, they might even have a WeChat group if it's something that if you sell into specific areas of the world. It might even have a mobile app attached to it. It's about having that 360 view and making sure that you have a solution in place that can take action and take the source down at root. Piracy and counterfeit goods, again, another legacy digital threat that continues to evolve. Apparently 7% of all internet traffic is directly related to online piracy. So, and I know Sweden has a particular stance on piracy and has quite the challenges with the rest of the world because of its piracy laws. But equally, it hasn't changed the fact that piracy is still rampant. It's actually that the cost of online piracy today run into the billions, estimated at about 58 billion globally. And again, if you're in the business of having content that needs to be monitored, it's monitoring the illegal piracy sites who now use social media to get that wider audience, make sure that they have lots of opportunity and followers to target. It's not just about going to a website like Pirate Bay and kind of downloading various pieces of content. It's about getting that wider audience out there and having multiple proxies if one website goes down. Equally, counterfeit goods, marketplaces has always been a haven for that. But marketplaces is one area. Again, marketplaces, links and listings are often listed on social profiles. They're linked to websites, they're linked to mobile apps, Instagram catalogs. The opportunity is huge. And again, it's having that intel, looking at where your brand is exposed, taking action accordingly. Really is the main approach to everything. You're probably seeing a theme here with all of these risks, taking action, having a hard solution in place to protect yourselves. You just really and truly cannot go wrong there. And it just gives you the insight into what's going on across the board. Information leaks, very, very topical at the moment. Data breaches, compromised credentials. It can be as simple as someone's email account being breached, but as you can see here, it can be as simple as somebody posting details of their corporate badge to enter their offices, maybe kind of putting credit card details online. It's people underestimate the reconnaissance that a hacker or a community that wants to target you take. They will do their due diligence on the organization. They will find the weakest link and they will use that and exploit that accordingly. There's approximately over 1,500 data leaks that occur every year, with approximately 72% of those coming from the inside. So it's a real kind of end-to-end. Some of it can be just because people are just kind of not as clued up. They don't realize what they're exposing from a random Facebook of a team that's being photographed with details on the board behind them of something that's really proprietary to the organization that a hacker can use to exploit what's going on in the organization. And again, it's looking at posts containing corporate details, corporate photographs, sensitive data and obviously PPI data, making sure that's taken down immediately because that will be collected and used against you. Physical threats and situational awareness. Now, this one's interesting because, again, maybe something for your corporate security, but it is often kind of used within the social media realm to do some kind of due diligence, to kind of do some recon on what's going on with people. So physical threats, we often work with organizations who have a kind of a CEO or kind of an executive team that are either based in risky locations or are travel there regularly for business. And we often don't just monitor the executive and the place, we often monitor the family because their social exposure and might actually give communities out there an insight into where that person's going, when they'll be there. And it's about understanding what's occurring there. We also work with government bodies, protecting their buildings. We look to protect sporting events. And what we do is we provide what we call geo-fencing services. So we can basically ring fence and orbit a building or a location, and then capture a 2-mile radius outside of that building. And we will capture all the social media chatter to get a sense of what's going on. Is there an imminent threat against people in a building, a sporting event, not that there's many of those at the moment, but some form of event that might mean the people within that region are at threat. And we can distinguish between someone making a kind of random comment and there being a direct threat. And if it's happening within that range, there's a high possibility that something will happen, as opposed to someone tweeting something 4,000 miles away. And we use this as well to try and also get a sense of the geopolitical landscape of an area if we have got people or executives or journalists going in there and getting a sense of what's being said. Equally, for protecting high net worth individuals, families, the works, this can be used in a multitude of ways. And it's really just another further layer of protection. And I'm sorry, I had to put this in. She is one of my favorites. And I could have put a whole load of COVID in here, but I think we've all had enough of that so far. But the Greta effect is, in kind of unassuming person who gained, global, focus over a matter of weeks and months, and it wasn't long as soon as she got that kind of global platform, this kind of Swedish national treasure start to get impersonated and frauded, and finally she had to turn to the trademarking industry in January 2020 to trademark her name, her well, not necessarily her hashtags, but the various associated logos and images with her presence, because people were exploiting her. She's not even a commercial operation, but she has started a movement, and the face of Greta Thunberg has been used from everything from a fraudulent charity to contacting various celebrities and prominent politicians and governments around the world to try and exploit and for financial or other nefarious reasons. And it's just, again, looking at the spread. I actually put this slide together at the height of it, and I kind of hope at this stage. I have knocked on her door a few times. She didn't come over back to me, but I believe her people are organizing a kind of cleanup of the internet. But this is the kind of just a snapshot of some of the abuse that occurred to even a non-commercial entity that was exploited to death. And I think now we're kind of aware of, I suppose, some of the exposure that you can get on social media from a positive point of view. But as soon as you become a brand name in any way, how the fraudsters quickly jump on the bandwagon and take advantage of that as well. And yeah, that's really the kind of the focus that we want to bring to the table today. We want to give highlight the exposure of what's going on with a particular brand, and obviously take action accordingly. And hopefully this will not happen to our little Greta again. And just finally, if we kind of start looking at, we've looked at the risks, we kind of got a sense of, you know, what could be impacting your brands if it hasn't occurred to you today so far. But how can you defend them? And forgive me, I'm just going to give you a little whistle-stop tour of some of the solutions that we typically kind of discussed with clients to give them a sense of security, a sense of protection online. Having a digital risk protection strategy is paramount in this day and age. What you want to be able to do is you want to be able to understand, first of all, what your digital asset list looks like. And that's not necessarily just your social media profiles. And this is where collaboration happens. This is where you're bringing your wider kind of departmental spread together. You know, you will be bonding with security people, marketing teams, communications teams, e-commerce, legal, even HR get involved. Everybody's got a dog in this fight to protect your organization. You guys are the front line when it comes to digital. And so making sure you collectively come together, document what you've got, and start protecting that. You want to get that whitelisted on a kind of a very strongly protected platform, ideally software as a service. And then you want an organization to come along and help you protect that. Protect your digital estate from being hacked or taken over. And then equally looking at what's out there, having that 360 view across your various digital presence on domains, on social, on mobile apps, making sure that you're looking at the deep and dark web. Has your email address has been compromised? Has anybody's inbox been compromised? And then constantly gathering intelligence so that you can spot a fraudulent account, you can spot an attack, take action accordingly. And believe it or not, it's really this simple. As soon as you're being seen to be a hard target and having a solution in place, the fraudsters move on to someone who's a soft target, because, you know, they realize you've got a solution in place, and they will be just, you know, constantly taken down. They will move on from that. And making sure also at the back of that, you have a comprehensive enforcement process. Different digital risks have different calls to action when it comes to enforcement. For example, if you are working on the domain side and you manage a domain portfolio, taking a domain down is a little bit more complex. You need to go to the registrar, you need to go to the ISP, if it's a fish as well, or you might need to go directly to the domain owner, go through a legal three-stage cease and desist process. For companies like Zerofox, for example, we have API integration to most of our data sources, so it's a lot more automated. So it really depends on the call to action. And having an automated artificial intelligence looking for the data in this mass that is the internet, and honing down into the critical areas is important, and then having a human eye run through that and take action. That's what we would recommend. And really, it depends also what you want to do in terms of exposure. But we would recommend you look at the entire digital estate that you're present on, and then look for impersonations as well. So it's having that strong intellectual property rights, having strong cybersecurity insight, and knowing where the threats are coming from and taking action, which is really important. And this is Zerofox, and this is what we typically bring to the table. We have a holistic approach. Again, we provide a broad sense of what's going on there. We monitor across a whole host of hundreds of different data sources. We provide a digital software as a service platform that's downloadable onto a tablet or an app, a tablet or your mobile phone. And then we have various types of services and integrations, making sure that we have a strong remediation process for our clients. We integrate with security technology, so your security bodies would be really interested in that. But the main thing is here, making sure as an organization, you've all got jobs to do. Digital risk has come along and provided another hat to wear, and most companies have not got that bandwidth. So you want to be able to outsource the digital risk, because it happens at 2 a.m. on a Saturday night or a Sunday night when everyone's, you know, in bed. You need a technology that's going to look for instances of abuse while you're sleeping and can take action accordingly when that happens. And if I just kind of finally leave you with this particular slide, I just wanted to give you a sense of some of the recommendations. When we're going into an organization, we're often looking to educate organizations on, one, the digital risks, and two, some recommendations. And we kind of do that in phases because, you know, a lot of the time, you know, 9 times out of 10, the financial services arena, the pharmaceutical arena, and in a lot of cases, the media organizations already may have services in place. Either they're siloed, but bringing it all together is really important. And the first thing about bringing a digital risk together is looking at the social media teams that are out there. You know, there might be a security team that might act on your behalf if your Twitter account gets hacked. But equally, as I said earlier, every department that uses the digital platforms or has some form of digital experience, it has a dog in this fight. And getting those together and building a task force or a center of excellence for social media is really important to give you guys the visibility in what's going on. Establishing best practices and protecting your accounts, putting in two-factor authentication, making sure passwords are regularly updated and robust, centralizing the email address for logins. There's been often cases where a profile would be registered by someone and then they leave the company and there's no way of accessing that because the email address went with the person who set it up on their Gmail account, for example. Installing maybe password managers. There's controls that can help with the governance and compliance piece from within your organization, and that's really key for protecting that account. Training the relevant parties within your organization on how to use social media. Really, don't click on links that come through if it looks like, you know, it's coming from an organization. You know, making sure there's, you know, monitoring for malicious profiles. Give your employees an inbox to go to if they spot something that's impacting the company, because in the early days of phishing back in the day, you know, it was the customers who discovered the fish before the financial institutes did. So, and it's often going to be your employees or your customers or your partners who might spot something if you don't have a system in place monitoring for these instances. Making sure as well that your security teams work in tandem with you while you're promoting and providing that platform into your brands via social, that your security teams work with you in tandem to continually monitor for breaches on those platforms where you're present within your profiles. Again, this is something that, you know, you could work in tandem with your security teams, and they would work in tandem with a company like Zerofox to make sure that the social profiles are protected and impersonations are taken down swiftly. Have regular sessions with your social media center of excellence to make sure that what you're doing is working and is effective. You know, this could be a quarterly session. We've worked with organizations who set this up monthly. It depends on your exposure. It might be something you want to do on a monthly basis until you've established that task force, and then make appropriate changes when needed. A lot of the time, you know, back in the day, banks often posted, you know, we will never ask for your password, we will never contact you in this way. Regardless of your sector, that would be a really good way of having a section on your website or somewhere where it's present, say, these are the areas, these are the ways we will never contact you. If in doubt, you know, contact the legitimate number of our company, or, you know, use a kind of legitimate channel to get in touch to check before you give away details or you click on that link or whatever the call to action is on the fraudulent attack. Just making sure your clients and partners feel supported in that way. And as I said, I've used the word important probably way too many times, but I can't stress that word enough. Becoming a hard target is really the way forward. Digital risk is not going away. In fact, it's even evolving. And as company Zerofox has evolved our services from digital risk into what we're calling public attack surface protection. Sounds really technical and security led, but it just means we look at your organization and see it as a hacker or an attacker or a fraudulent person would. And we look to make sure that we protect and we protect those blind spots that you may have. We make sure you have a 360 view of what's going on, and really and truly choosing the right partner to implement that strategy alongside you is where you guys as a unit, as an organization, will have full protection. And I think that brings me to the end of my session. I hope I haven't gone over time.
Thank you, Lisa.
But what I will say, thank you very much for your time. And our partner in Sweden is Infomedia. We'd love to maybe set up an individual session with you if you'd like to know more. We can shine a spotlight into your exposure, and maybe this is something we could work together on. But please feel free to contact Infomedia, the team there, and I'd be delighted to have further chats with you.
Thank you.
Very much.
Big hand to Lisa and to Alexander. And just one question. We are a little bit out of time, but what about traditional classical obstacles, so very common obstacles for why not doing anything here? What do you see there, Lisa?
Common obstacles to not doing anything. Is that what you said, Matt?
Yes.
Yeah. So the reality is often companies come to us, and that's exactly what's happened. The obstacles to doing nothing is impact on your organization's reputation, impact on a company's share price. If you've got a competitive scenario, which all of us do, will this give the advantage to your competitor? There was quite a prominent hack of a CEO's email account in Europe of late. I can't say who, but it had a dramatic impact on the share price. And it meant not just the organization looked bad, the CEO looked bad and had to actually end up resigning. But it did impact the share price and the brand image for a spell. So I think that's the first instance. And when you think about the amount of money and time an organization spends on building a brand, that's a major impact.
Yeah. And Alexander, do you see here in Sweden and Scandinavia, are we better or worse than the rest of Europe and so on doing this and focusing on?
I would say that we're a little bit behind. We've noticed a lot of companies and organizations we've spoken to have a very hard time getting past the point where they don't know who's in charge. So will communication lead this? Will marketing lead this? Will information security lead this? Whose bag is this to deal with? And I think we have a tradition of decentralized organizations, very flat organizations, which means everybody has to be in agreement before something can be done. And that's a very poor mix to this type of sort of centralized security tactic being used. So I think we're a little bit behind, but I also see a lot of companies waking up, and I think the typical way to do it is that communication or marketing leads the way, but then information security are the people who actually do something. So somebody owns the digital presence, the brand presence, that's marketing or communications. Somebody else owns the actions or the remediations or whatever you want to call it that then follow.
Okay, thanks. And a big hand to both Alexander and Lisa for the breakfast seminar.
Thanks guys.
Bye bye. Om ni vill prata vidare med synnerhet kanske Infomedia, och de har ju kontakt med Zerofox, så kommer ni få länkar och så skickade till er. Och ni som är här, ni kan ju alltid gå bak och prata med kollegorna till Alexander. Vill du vara med på konferensen som nu fortsätter, Social Media Marketing Day, hela dagen och hänga med oss här, så går det bra att anmäla sig och köpa biljett på sajten socialmediamarketingday.se. Så att gör det, så ses vi snart igen, så börjar vi 9:00. Ha det bra, hej då!